And for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, everyone, welcome to tonight's meeting. Kathy, you want to do a roll call for us?
Absolutely. Councilwoman Sabin?
Here.
Chacos? Councilwoman Bergbauer?
Here.
Councilman Galogly?
Here.
Councilman Vandermeer? Councilman Deskin?
Here.
Councilwoman Bartleson?
Here.
Councilwoman Peretta?
Here.
Yeah.
Two missing.
All right, very good, thanks. Gordon, if you can meet me over here at the podium, please. So Gordon McCluskey, you know, Gordon tonight is, he's stepping down from the Police Pension Board where he served, and we wanted to say thank you for all the time that you've put in. But I think it's also important to point out a couple other things about Gordon McCluskey. He actually was hired here as the Public Works Director in 1968. Yes, so Gordon's had a long history with the city of Lockport, and he's been a real blessing to the city and all that's happened here in those times. He was also promoted to city administrator in 1980, and he served until 1996 in that post. So if anyone knows where the bodies are buried, it's Gordon. So between Public Works and that, but you know, he's also done much more, and I had to write it down because I know I wouldn't remember. You know, he served on the Special Task Force Group for Building Fees, Chicago Area Transportation Committee, the Board of Local Improvements, a member of the Will County Municipal League, Public Safety Committee, Public Water Commission, Police Pension Board, of course, and the Will County Stormwater Management Committee. I'm sure there's a couple that we missed, Gordon, and we mean no disrespect. It's just that when we have a citizen of your caliber who puts so much time and energy into the city, it's got to be appreciated, and it is by us. And it's hard to get people to step up. And you know, while the you know, Public Works and city administrator jobs, these other things are just your passion and volunteering to be part of our great city. And I just want to say thank you for all that you've done for us.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, buddy. And so this certificate is just simply for one of those adventures. And so on this 17th day of May 2017 by the City of Lockport for serving on the Police Pension Board for the City of Lockport from 2005 to 2017. Your dedication, loyalty, and commitment to Lockport community have helped increase the quality of life for all of its residents, and we truly appreciate all the time and effort you put forth in helping to keep Lockport the city of historic pride. So again, thanks, Gordy.
Thank you.
Man.
Thank you. You know, I had enough of the meetings. An early meeting was midnight when I was here. So, Ben, shape them up.
Yes. We're not talking enough. Holy moly. Ernest, you're here tonight to do a prayer for us this evening?
Please pray with me. Mighty Heavenly Father, first we just would like to say thank you. Thank you for peace. Thank you for your love. Thank you for protecting this city. We look to the hills in which our help come. Our help come from you, Father God. We ask you to lead and guide. We're asking for your guidance. Your word said, all thy ways acknowledge you, and you will direct our path. I ask you to direct this city to bring blessings, Father, to open up doors, to enlarge the territory. In your son's name, amen.
Thank you. And speaking of volunteers, you know, our police chaplains, you know, Ernest, Lou, and Steve have been a tremendous help. And again, it's all volunteer. And I thank you for caring and just dedicating your time and energies to our city. So thank you, gentlemen. Do we have anything tonight for our liaison reports?
I do. I do.
Okay, go ahead. You go first.
You
No.
go first.
Mine will fall into place. Go ahead. You go first.
Okay.
It's like those two chipmunks.
This is kind of a follow-up of discussion we had July, August of last year in regards to traffic, truck traffic over on Gauger Road. It was proposed at that time, I proposed at that time that we should have an intergovernmental agreement with Will County Sheriff's Department to have joint jurisdiction over this stretch of road, because what is probably happening is as we have increased our patrols and our enforcement of truck traffic within the boundaries of the city, what has happened here is truckers are now going over on Gauger Road where they're not supposed to be. The enforcement by the county has been very, very poor, and thus truck after truck after truck has been going down there. So last month, or early this month, Homer Glen, they have proposed gas station at the corner of 159th and Gauger in the northeast corner. The concern of the residents that live in that area is that it's going to also have truck docks for refueling there. The administration of Homer Glen has said, no, that isn't true. So their concern was, well, they gas up, they can go right down Gauger Road. And once again, if there isn't a county cop there to go ahead and stop them, then it's just going to go ahead and continue to get worse. So what I asked a couple of days ago is that enough is enough with the county, and we need to go ahead and get an IGA between us and Will County to have a joint jurisdiction on Gauger Road. And if the county's even willing to go ahead and give us actually give us the road versus having them have the road. So I know the police chief has spoken with the sheriff. Mr. Thanis has sent me an email with some suggestions of what needs to be, what could possibly need to be done. But I'm hoping that we can get this thing resolved to where our police officers will have jurisdiction over on Gauger Road to go ahead and start writing tickets. The question is, if it's going to be a joint jurisdiction, is who's going to get the money? We all have our opinions of that. I'd like to get it all. Will County probably like to get it all. Maybe we can get something in between. But if we actively enforce, and one thing I'd like to know, and I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this question, is truckers have to be able to communicate with each other somehow, some way. I have no idea if CB radios are the way that they continue to do it. If there is a way to go ahead and find out how they actually communicate on the road with each other, then I would sure like to be able to go ahead and have the radio installed in our police department so we can go ahead and hear them, overhear them saying, oh, go down Gauger Road, and we just go ahead and write 50 or 100 tickets a day over there, which would be great. And eventually what will happen is they're not going to want to be paying the $500,000 to $20,000 per ticket that that they should be paying. So I don't know, Mr. Thanis, do you have any thoughts on that?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I will follow up with the state's attorney's office. The sheriff asked us to contact either Mr. Glasgow or somebody in his civil division to see if the state's attorney's office would have any legal concerns about Lockport police officers writing tickets for trucks that are actually outside the city limits. I have given the to Ben and Alderman Deskin and the mayor that I believe through the Intergovernmental Cooperation Act, municipalities and counties can transfer jurisdiction and authority to write tickets, but we do have to get by the state's attorney's office, so I'll follow up with them, and I'll draft an agreement so they have something to look at.
I think it's important to clarify, too, is that I don't think we want jurisdiction over Will County DOT for roads. We don't want the responsibility of the roads. We're just talking about enforcement of speeding and overweight trucks.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Joanne, you had something?
Yes, as I had mentioned at our last meeting, we're going to put together a small presentation of a resubmitting of the breakaway wall for the Gateway corridor on 159th and 355. And so, Ben?
Yeah, I'll go to the podium here.
Okay.
Well, was there any other liaison reports? You guys have anything? Okay. All right, man, then why don't you talk about CA1, our Gateway Monument?
Mayor and members of the council, in your packet this week, there was a PowerPoint, and you have the slides with you, and we have them up on the TVs here tonight and above. This was something as a culmination of what I call the Beautification Committee with Councilwoman Bartleson and Alderman Petrakos, myself, and Pam Hirth. And what you see on your screens here is a rendition of what it would look like. We've used some incorporations of the Main Street logo with historic Lockport and the wall that historically we tried to follow our heritage, where you can see a very historic wall and monument as you come into Lockport down by the railroad tracks on 9th Street. So that was the image that we were trying to convey. We had submitted this to IDOT previously, but it was made of stone, and there were some new rules adopted about putting stone structures in the right-of-way at IDOT. So we've resubmitted, as Joanne mentioned, and this is a foam design. So you can see in the upper left corner there where even the bowl that would hold the plants is made of foam, and that stone, which is actually fake. It looks like stone. And so we searched a few companies and got several estimates, and we feel that this is what we call a breakaway design with IDOT, where we tried to, if you can see the coloring that we chose, and I forgot I left it in my office, I'll bring it in here shortly, is a foam wall that we tried to emulate the LED sign that's already out there on 159th, because this would be within several hundred yards of that other monument, so we wanted to make sure the coloring was the same. Here's the location. So as you come into town, both the aldermen were very concerned about the first thing you see. We really wanted to be as close to the median as possible. There's some orange cones there in the middle of the median where the sign would be located saying "Welcome to Lockport," and then there would be plantings behind it down the median. This is probably a little too high level to see it, but you can see on here that 355 is there. That's that first intersection and where the plantings would be. This is a bit of a more detail where you can see the sign at about in the middle of that. You can see the arrows pointing to the existing traffic signals out there. It has to be so many feet behind that, and then we would have trees and plantings underneath it, being very appeasing and a pleasing view when you come into the town. This was an extended drawing of just a few more details of what's out there. And of course, the question is, how much will this all cost? So we've put $50,000 in the budget last year because before we embarked on all this, we weren't sure what everything was going to cost. We have gotten multiple estimates on the fake sign. It's about $26,000. We're waiting for some final estimates on running power to the median. We're guessing $10,000, probably be a little less. We explored having water and irrigation to support those plants, but we also felt like that was an awful lot of money, that we're not suggesting that at this time, that we can use our own crews to keep things water if we end up with a hot summer. A few dollars for some actual lights, hardwired lights. We don't feel solar is powerful enough to illuminate what we're trying to do. And then the plantings were bid out, and we have about $38,000 in plantings. So right now, we're looking at over $100,000 in possibilities. We're, for this fiscal, because we budgeted $50,000 and we spent a little bit in engineering, we're recommending the $38,000 in options, which is putting the sign in and then powering it up. If the council wanted to, we could add the plantings to that, which would be a total of $77,000. That would be about $27,000 over budget. And that could be done this year if we got the approval for IDOT, but I think it's a decision for the council. Do you want to wait a year and budget for it? Or, we have projects that aren't getting completed, and there is money in the check with finance, there is money available in the budget if you wanted to spend another $27,000 to try to wrap this all up into 1 year. But of course, it's still contingent on IDOT approval. But we wanted to get this in front of you and just kind of discuss it a little bit in regards to some of the options that are available and the direction from the council and how you'd want to continue to proceed.
All right, council, thoughts, questions, concerns?
I have a couple comments. I did call an insurance agent today to find out what the minimum amount of insurance is. If somebody has the bare minimum auto, the coverage for crashing into something, bare minimum is $20,000. If someone was to crash into it, what would the sign cost to replace since it's fake?
Well, it would
Say
be,
they crashed into it, like.
yeah, it would be $26,000, my guess, to replace it. It would end up, either our insurance or their insurance would settle in regards to if the owner didn't have enough insurance.
You would then have the coverage to cover it if they had the
Sure.
bare minimum. Is that how that would work? Okay. And then with plantings, generally plantings have like a 1-year warranty on it. And so with your timing of it, when you plant something in, you keep that in consideration too, just so you know.
Fall or spring, I think, is best,
Well,
and
but
then
just they
1-year
usually have a
warranty.
1-year warranty. So we want to also probably make sure that whatever we plant there is sustainable for salt and the snow, because we have a huge problem with that in Thunder Hill. And so
Hardy
where I
plants.
live, whatever we plant in our island does not really generally last with the snowplow coming through there. So just keep in mind, they do look nice in other towns when the plantings are done right. So just keep that in mind. The plantings will probably be a continual cost going forward, so it will not be something
It'll
that's
be
just.
seasonal plantings is what we're
Right,
thinking
but-
by the actual sign.
But it'll probably need to be something as a line item then budget going forward if we're gonna maintain it, so.
Right, and that's the thought, that,
Okay.
We do have some monies in the budget already where we've taken care of some things by 8th Street and the public landing, and there's some other areas in the town where we've partnered with the Partition as well, where they're taking care of things for us now a little bit. We've just started hanging the new planters that come in every year. We did less this year because of the State Street construction, and so there's not a lot in the downtown that there typically is, but we'll bring those back when things go up. So we usually do have some money in the budget for those kinds of items, but we can certainly look at this as make sure we have that enough to cover it.
And then at the front, why are we not covering prior to the light pole? We would not be able to just put bricks there or stone
I
there?
wouldn't allow it, yeah.
wouldn't allow
That-
anything
No,
there?
they had certain restrictions about how many feet they could be back from any existing features, as they call them, which is the
So it'll
traffic
just stay
signals.
grass?
It would stay grass, yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess we could potentially rototill it and put bark down, but I think grass is probably better.
Okay. That's all.
I have a quick question. So as far as going back to the plants, would initially a lot of them be perennials? So you'd be changing out some of the colors for seasons, but for the most part, there would be greenery throughout the
For
year?
for 90% of it, it would just be greenery, and we had Tescan Associates landscape person help us chance that we're going to be hardy. What we talked about was though some seasonal changes in colors right by the sign itself, so just really, literally very minor plantings, which is kind of what we do at some of the other monument sites in the town. If the one south on State Street, if you've ever noticed that one.
Thanks.
Sorry for being so naive on this, but that 38,000 seems like a lot of money for trees and plants and flowers. Have we gotten other bids? I'm sorry if I don't know.
Yeah, we had 3 bids. The highest was about 52,000, the lowest was 38,000, the middle bid was about 43,000. It's a lot of excavation, IDOT permits, plantings, guarantees with plantings. They, usually they charge you for a tree 3 times, right? The cost to get it, the cost to plant it, and the cost for profit. So definitely expensive, so. It was more than I was expecting, for sure. But we also have to use prevailing wage, and there's a lot of things that factor into it.
How much for rocks?
Well, and that's where
Anything that-
this was kind of a subcommittee, in the last year with Jim and Joanne and Pam and I, and there was a lot of focus on, cleaning up the town and the image, and I think there's actually several of these, and I should share the plan with the rest of the council and the new members so you can see kind of what was discussed. There are many entryways that we're trying to identify to help welcome people in, and certainly in some areas that are more dilapidated, we want to signify that that's not us, that this is where Lockport starts and this is where things are more beautiful. So there'll be more of these, so I think we do need to be careful on the precedents that we set, because we're going to try to emulate this in 2 or 3 other locations of the city, and that's what we can do if you want to.
The other thing that this probably is going to be a little bit more expensive because it's right there in the main corridor of 355 and 159th Street. There's a certain size median that's there, and people don't realize that that's not our property, but we're asking permission to go in and plant things. So that way people start getting the idea. As soon as you hit this section right here, you're entering Lockport. And that was the whole thing, to dress it up and say, look, we're here and, you know, we're ready to go.
We could definitely revisit the plantings and try to scale back a few trees and things and save a few extra dollars. I mean, sometimes these things are a little over-designed, but I'm not a landscape architect, but.
Well, especially if we're going to have problems with salt and everything else. I mean, it's going to be expensive and maintaining it.
All right, so my question is, are guys going to go out there, they're the ones that are going to water it like they do the baskets, Ben?
Correct. We would add that to the program, which we've been doing in partnership with the Park District this year. I'd like to give them thanks
Yeah,
because
they've been doing a good job.
we have to do it every day. You have to water and fertilize almost every day. And for city crews to do it on the weekends and holidays, it gets a little expensive. So the Park District has partnered us where we kind of do mostly during the week and they do a lot of the weekends and holidays. And there's no more harsh environment than a basket hanging in the sun and the wind. So we have to give them a lot of attention. And this median would be a key monument and image that we would, yes, we have to make sure that we have maintenance and upkeep.
I think probably maybe some of the confusion with the plantings maybe is just that this picture looks like there's just one bowl of plants there, so. I think that's an expensive bowl of plants, yeah.
Yeah, I
I
should-
think it's, but the whole median is covered with trees and
The entire
landscaping.
thing is,
Okay, I follow.
Yeah, it's quite extensive, it looks like.
there's actually seven trees and,
Yeah,
quite a bit of plantings and digging things up.
okay. All right, so I guess the question for everyone, I think we're all in agreement on moving forward with the monument. Do you guys want to do plantings or not? I guess that's the question. So, just kind of get a idea from you guys.
So what you're asking, I mean, because we could just start with this first part and then decide if we want to enhance on it next year, correct?
You bet. We are still waiting for confirmation from IDOT. They sent us a letter when we originally applied saying, can't do it this way, but if you follow X and Y, you will likely be approved. So we did what they told us to do and resubmitted. We're hoping for an answer any day now, and we wanted to get ahead of it. So if we get the okay, we can get things in right away. We're hoping to install it this year. We budgeted $50,000 in the budget this year. We've spent about 5 or 6. So we still have $44,000 available for this. So if you buy the sign, it will definitely eat up most of this year's budget. And we figured at budget time last year that we would put funds available in each year going forward. We were hopeful to get maybe at least one monument per year. This monument is overly large and elongated because of the median size, so I think future, and we can get estimates ahead of time in this year's budget, because we kind of started late on this one last year, where we'll be able to hopefully put in the budget an appropriate amount for the next one. It may be 60 or may only be 40, but right now, I think to do it, to make it pop with a sign and plantings would be $77,000, and we only have about 44 left. So we would have to take, not that we'd necessarily take away from another project this year, because we have projects that don't get completed. We have money in the budget to do it, but it's a council decision on the investment in regards to doing that, so.
All right, so there's 3 options then for us to consider, if I'm not mistaken. So we can do 38,000, get the monument up, and look at plantings next year. We have 50,000 budgeted, so conceivably, we could do a $38,000 monument and then another 12,000 for some plantings, so we stay within
In other
budget.
areas of the town, you could,
And then
sure.
do more the next year, or we do all the plantings and the monument at once. So it seems to me those are the 3 options. It really comes down to what you guys want to do, and we'll put it on the agenda for next time.
I would bring it back maybe once we get approval. I mean, no sense to approve it unless we get IDOT's going to okay it, but
All right.
package everything, but.
All right, then why don't we just leave that out there for us to consider, and you
about.
tell us what IDOT says we can do. It might be a
Right.
moot point, so.
And also, just so that council knows, we are actually asking IDOT to approve absolutely everything in this one time.
Yes.
Because they are so slow in responding that we didn't want to wait another year just to get a yes or no. So we went in with the full, plantings and electric and water, if we choose to do that. It doesn't mean we're going to do all of it, and if we do, all in good time and when the money's available. But I think just dressing up that section you know, with something, it's going to just improve the appearance.
It will.
okay?
I think you guys did a good job. Thank you, Joanne.
You're welcome.
All right, so we'll leave those three options floating. We'll wait for IDOT to tell us what they're going to actually allow, and then we'll know just how much to move forward with. All right, thanks again, Joanne.
Okay, thank you. Mayor and members of the council, the next item, CA2, is a training session that we discussed at the last council meeting in regards to bringing members of the Heritage and Architecture Committee, Planning and Zoning Commission, and the City Council together for a special meeting. We have set that for Wednesday, June 28th at 7 o'clock. We'll have it here in council chambers. The individual boards have all been notified, and we'll post this online and at the City Hall. I just wanted to bring it to your attention that we formally have set this date that we talked about.
All right, good. I think that'll be great, so.
And our focus is basically proper procedures and things for zoning processes and how we process things in our different meetings.
Okay. All right, talk to me about July 5th.
Yes, CA3, Mayor and members of the council, is the opportunity, if you choose, to skip the July 5th meeting this year. There's been a lot of vacations announced, and we may or may not be able to grant quorum, and so at this point, we don't see anything dire coming on the agenda for that date, so we could, with your consent, not have that meeting on July 5th. We would have the meeting on in June, the two meetings in June, and then we'd have one meeting in July on July 19th.
The only question I have here is every meeting, we always approve bills to be paid during a pay period and payroll. So is it possible to go ahead and approve whatever bills that we would be approving on July 5th?
So,
And at this special council meeting on June 28th?
you know, I was just writing a note to ask him about that as a potential. We could do that. But a number of the bills that you have on your list get done as manuals anyway, and you guys approve those after the fact. So this would have to be the same thing. Anything that had to be paid, we would go ahead and pay, so we didn't have any late fees or penalties on anything, so it wouldn't be late. We would go ahead and get those out, and anything that could wait, we will wait until the second meeting in July.
That includes
and do
payroll?
that. No, payroll always gets done automatically. You guys always approve that after the fact.
Okay.
So in other words, you feel like it's okay if we don't have to deal with it on that meeting?
Yes. And if we had anything emergency, we could always add it to that June 28th meeting.
Okay. Feel okay with that, Darren? All right. Are we good with that then? We all don't have to come to work on the 5th? Okay. All right.
Big travel holiday, so.
All right, talk to me about FD1. Who's that? Lisa?
Oh, yes, that's me. Thank you, Mayor. The state of Illinois requires annual passage of the prevailing wage ordinance. So we did this last year, if everybody, well, those that were here remember. So we have it in front of you again this year. It's ordinance 17-015. The state of Illinois has not updated the wages since July of 2015. So you'll see that those numbers are still included in here, but they still do require that we annually pass this ordinance. So I'm seeking approval at the next council meeting for that ordinance.
Okay, questions, concerns?
Does that mean it'll spike if they update it to 2017?
We would have to follow whatever it is. Once the state passes it, we would have to
You
follow
don't have
whatever
to
they
back pay
pass.
anything or?
Oh, no, there's no back pay.
So, but it'll just, the price will just jump then? I'm guessing everything goes up, so the prevailing wage would go up then when they finally come up with a budget and do their job? Okay.
Anything else? Is this something, we're okay with the consent agenda then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the budget calendar.
Yes, so in your packets, the budget calendar for fiscal year 2018. We'll start the budget kickoff in July, and we'll start doing some reviews with council one-on-ones in September. And then we'll present it to the first time at a council meeting on October 18th. We'll have a public hearing November 1st, and then hoping to approve a full budget by November 15th. Any questions on the calendar?
No, it looks good. Is that something we need to approve then?
No, I just
Okay.
wanted for information, just to make sure everybody was on the same page, knowing where we were at.
Okay. Very
Thank you,
good.
Mayor.
All right. Let's take an AT1.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll handle the next three items. The first item is a license agreement between the City of Lockport and the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. Over the last 10 to 15 years, Chevron has been remediating the old Texaco site and making many improvements so the property can be redeveloped. Part of that was to deal with stormwater management issues that have needed attention. What Chevron has done is they've replaced an old dam with a brand-new dam, have added a new weir and an inverted siphon. There's a plat that's attached to the council memo that shows you where those are located, and I think for our new council members, if you haven't had a chance to have a tour of the site, it's definitely worth seeing the inner workings of what they've done over the last decade or so. What's before you tonight is permission from the state to have those facilities there and excuse me, and for the city of Lockport to continue maintaining them. The creeks in which those facilities lie are actually owned by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, so we need to get permission from them. They usually grant permission through a license, what's called a license agreement. Functions like a lease, and it gives us permission to maintain those structures there. What's before you tonight is first reading on the license agreement. There's a $200 annual fee that the city pays to IDNR for permission to do that. This is a 20-year agreement, and IDNR and the city have many agreements along the I&M Canal, which is owned by the state. The city staff is recommending approval. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, our recommendation is to put it on the next agenda for approval.
Questions, concerns? All right, put it on for another damn vote. Right? All right, ma'am. Sorry, couldn't help it. All right, what else you got, Dami?
Next item is an amendment to the administrative adjudication ordinance. Last year, the city council approved an ordinance change that allowed a lot of the tickets that were previously written for parking and other minor violations to go through an administrative adjudication process rather than taking certain offenses to circuit court. As we've gotten into the program and the police department manages this program, there have been some portions of our old code that have either a conflict or are redundant. What's before you is a cleanup ordinance that eliminates some of the conflicts and some of the redundancies. It also corrects the schedule of fines. If you look at the schedule, there's a series of fines that are paid, and there's a way of minimizing how much you pay by paying it within the first 10 days of receiving the ticket. The very tail end of the fines had an error where there was a $10 increase that was intended that did not show up in the code. So what we've done is we've added a provision that changes that schedule and makes certain violations, if you haven't paid after the first 56 days of the issuance of the ticket, then it goes up substantially. We actually don't use this too often. Most people end up paying their tickets within the prescribed time, or if they want to contest it, there's a process for contesting it, and an administrative adjudication hearing officer makes those decisions. The ordinance before you has been reviewed by the police department, and they're recommending approval, as am I. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're recommending that this be placed in the next agenda for approval.
All right, questions, concerns?
Just a little background on this. This came about a year or so ago based upon the fact that our municipal code really didn't have a whole lot of bite to it in regards to enforcement. For example, we go ahead and somebody doesn't cut their grass, and there's probably half a dozen or more people in town that don't cut their grass. We cut the grass for them. And the old way, which was basically is well, they just accumulate this debt, accumulate this debt, accumulate this debt, until such time a lien was put on their property, and if and when they'd ever sell their house in the next 50 years, that was the only recourse that the city had. So this puts a little bit of bite into it. So this is phase one of a two-phase implementation of what I'm hoping we'll be doing. Phase two, probably September, October, so. Good.
All right. Anything else? Okay. I forgot to ask about consent for AT1. Are you guys okay with consent for the license agreement?
Yeah.
For next time? And then are we okay with the consent agenda for this item?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, what's the last one you got there, Tommy?
Last item, it's an amendment to the city impoundment and towing of vehicles ordinance. Deputy Chief Huff and I have been reviewing the state statute that gives the city the authority to tow vehicles that have been used in the commission of certain offenses. We found that the city code was not consistent with the state authorization statute, so it's necessary for us to update the city code so it matches what's allowed by the state. What's before you is basically another cleanup ordinance that gets our towing ordinance in line with what the state authorizes. The city staff is recommending its approval, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're recommending approval of this ordinance also at the next meeting.
All right, any questions? We're good with consent? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, who's taking CE1?
I am this evening. Would you like me to stay here? I don't know.
Wherever you're comfortable, Brent. Obviously, we,
Okay. I'll choose here if I have the choice.
okay.
Stay out of the hot seat for a couple more meetings, maybe. This evening, we do have an item on the agenda. This is the Public Works, I'll say / Engineering Department. Amy Wagner did prepare a memo, so I'm not going to read it word for word, but do want to hit a few highlights in the memo this evening, and then we can talk through it in a little bit more detail. The current project that we have going on, the reconstruction water main replacement on Jefferson, Washington, Division, 13th, 14th Streets, in the city. The project went to bid. The project is under construction currently. The project has been under construction for, I apologize. Project has been under construction, yes, for about a week and a half. I was going to say a couple weeks. About a week and a half, the project's been under construction. Before we started construction of this project, what we do as a department is we go out and we do our Julie locates. This is a common practice. This is what we have to do as a department. We have to do this as a utility provider, just like AT&T, ComEd. What we had to do is we had to go out and locate our water main. When we did that, when we went out and located our water main, we found water main that was not shown on the plans and that was not shown on our previous atlas. In talking with staff, we have an atlas from about the 70s, about 1972. We also have an atlas from about 2007. These are the dates on them. I don't want to tell you that's the exact year that they were created, but those are the dates that are on these atlas. Neither atlas showed the water main that we were able to find in the field. Specifically on Jefferson Street from 14th to Division, there was a 4-inch water main that was out in the field that was not shown again on the plans or the atlas. This is part of our limits of construction. As part of the limits of construction, as part of this project, we are replacing all 4-inch water main. This water main has been deemed substandard. We've had issues on it in the past in these areas. So when we found out that there was a 4-inch water main that we were unaware of, we wanted to bring this to council to include this in the project. We feel now's the time. Everything's being torn up. We're reconstructing the roadways, reconstructing curb, reconstructing water main on the adjacent blocks. So again, as part of this project, we wanted to include that. Moving along to the next intersection, Washington and Division, we had a similar situation. In addition to, again, the atlas not being accurate, when we went out there, we had our staff go out there, we had our water staff do field locates. We also, after talking about it, we've had some recent water main breaks in this area. And so, again, once we were kind of able to, on paper, here's where the limits of our project scope are, here's where the limits of the water main are, confirm those in the field. We felt as though we wanted to, number one, clean up the intersection, which you can see, again, I'll refer to specific pages in the memo. But also we wanted to clean up some main breaks. We had some main breaks along Division Street that have occurred over the last several years. When you drive up and down Division, every time you see a patch, that's what it is. It's a water main break. So as part of this job, again, we wanted to include that. Excuse me. So as part of the project, and I know as part of the memo, the big question is how do we get here? Why did we get here? And those are some questions that I definitely wanted to understand myself. I think for us as a staff, how did we get here? The atlas is something that we have to work on as a city. It's not, I don't think it's just our department. I don't think it should all be put back on, I'll say, the public works. This is something that's occurred over many years. So to have an atlas that is 50, 60, 70% accurate, it's almost like we don't have an atlas that we can rely on. And so at what point do you say it's no longer, worth providing to developers, providing to engineers for the project, utilizing as staff to design from? So I think that is one thing that I'm learning, and I'm understanding that this atlas is far from accurate. Again, over the years, I think what it's been is just a compilation of not taking the proper steps to document projects as they were completed, take that documented information and put it into our atlas, put it into our mapping system. I think that's not been done. I also think that, when this 4-inch water main, 50, 60, 70 years old, when that was done, proper records were not taken. Again, why? I don't want to speculate this evening, but those are some issues that we've seen. So that to me, biggest issue is that atlas. How can we figure that out? How can we address this for the long term? The water, the storm sewer, and the sanitary sewer. So that's kind of the big picture that I see. And I think the next question, honestly, and we've talked internally about this, is before we actually started construction on this section of the project, we as a city, we located these issues. So our staff went out there, located the water main, determined that the water main that is shown on the plans, the water main existing, did not match what is actually out in the field. So after understanding that on my end, one of the things that we've talked about, and again, this is kind of how I feel like we are going to address this in the future, in addition to the water atlas, the sewer atlas, the storm atlas, we also want to take a little bit more of a proactive approach. Rather than waiting until that project goes to bid and that project is going to start and we're going to go out and do our Julie locate at that time, again, talking with staff, we've come up with, this is how we're going to do it. During design, so for next year's projects, next year's design projects, we're going to go out and do that Julie locate now. So we go out, we actually physically locate it to the best of our ability. None of us have x-ray vision. So the best, what you do is you go out there, you use the best technology that you can, and we're going to go out and try and locate that water main to eliminate this type of a situation where we're missing an entire block. It's not shown on the atlas. That atlas, again, is what I think has been used as a tool, and I don't know if moving forward if it's the best tool to be used. So that is, again, that's kind of one of the ways that I've talking with staff that we're going to move forward, we're going to address these things. Another issue is a section of Washington and Division, especially on Division. If we knew that there were water main breaks there, why were those not initially included in the plans? Valid question. I understand that can be a concern, something that, again, we've talked about as staff, we've talked about as a department, how can we address this? Easiest thing, and I know everybody's going to say, probably communication. I think it's getting everybody together. And again, I think they've done a lot of good communication in the past with, with the water department and the engineering, with the sewer and the engineering. We're going to sit everybody down, and we're going to really focus on that moving forward here this year. Focus on each plan set. Every department gets the ability to review, give comments, and then we're going to have a sign-off, essentially, that somebody is accepting, I have reviewed it. This goes, to myself as well. I will review them, document it, sign it. Everybody's going to put in their input, and I think we're going to have a heck of a lot more thorough process to hopefully catch as many of these as we can. Will we catch them all? Absolutely not. I think there's still going to be some potential out there moving forward. Again, none of us have x-ray vision, but I think these are some steps that we're going to be able to take to alleviate some of these issues.
All right.
I have a question. When you say "we," you do the Julie locate, is it we, our staff, or is it we hire somebody to go ahead and do it? Because every time I've ever seen somebody out there, it's always been somebody from ComEd or somebody from NICOR. Okay, so then, which leads to the next question here is whoever we is. And to be honest with you, I like the what you presented going forward. But whoever we is, if we're out there, no, I'm not an engineer. I'm not a Julie guy, okay? I'm just a guy who says, well, it makes sense that if we are out there and we find the electric line and we find the gas line, and knowing it's in an easement that's probably provided by the city, then by golly, within an easement, there's probably going to be something else. And so then you say that, well, we found it after the fact. And we had an outside engineering company overview this thing, and it never occurred to them that, hey, somehow these people are getting water. We haven't found the water main, but we're just going to go ahead and draw up these nice lines on a piece of paper and have it go ahead and with all these arrows and stuff and dotted lines. And oh, by the way, we don't know how these people are getting water. I mean, it's just so. I don't know who I'm disappointed in. I don't know if I'm disappointed in staff or I'm disappointed in the people that we spent a lot of money actually go ahead and engineering this thing. And that's, I'd like an explanation from them why they missed this. Because they were paid a lot of money to design this thing, and they screwed up.
I think it's a very fair question. To take it back to the first question regarding the Julie locate. Julie locates are typically, you're going to have a couple different companies out there. You're going to have USIC. You'll see their trucks all around. USIC handles AT&T, ComEd, NICOR, Comcast. They are a contracted by all of these utilities, and that's who goes out and does all the locates. So they're locating for many different companies. We do our own. So when I say we, our staff, our water staff goes out and we actually physically locate our water main in the field. So our water staff is who does that. Sanitary sewer, again, the same thing. We go out and we locate that. So when that Julie comes in, we've got 48 hours to go out and we've got, to do that. So again, moving forward, I really do think that it's something, that if we do that ahead of time and you do a little bit of investigation when you're out there, something doesn't quite look right. Again, I don't want to pretend that this is an ultimate fix because it's going to take us a step forward. I don't think it's going to be an ultimate fix, but it will take us that next step. Quite honestly, when I looked at the plans, I said probably the same as you regarding our designer, the engineer that did the design. I was disappointed when I first saw the plans. They showed some water services, didn't connect anywhere. I needed to understand why, how did that happen? The biggest thing that I hear, that I understand, is that the atlas was what was provided to them. And then the second thing is some of these services, this is a short block. It's kind of a diagonal block, Jefferson from 14th Division. It's kind of an odd block. And so the services, when they are short like that, sometimes when they're short like that, again, I'm learning this the more I talk and see things, they go, instead of necessarily having to be right out in front of the house, we actually have some pretty long services. Again, not what I would recommend, not what we would do today, but I guess it's not that abnormal to have a service make a 90 and go another 100 feet to a side street and tie in to another water main. Again, is it right? No, we're going to fix that. We're going to eliminate those as we come across them. But again, it's not that abnormal. So I think what happened was when they had that instance where they said, okay, we're not seeing anything, it must be that I don't want to speak for that engineer, but here's what the situation is. Do I think it's right? I would have liked us to have pushed a little bit more, quite honestly. I think that's our job as city staff. You know, the consultant's there to do their job, but our job is to manage them. Again, it's a tricky area because none of us have, again, I say it, none of us have x-ray vision, so the only way to do it is to maybe do some potholes. That was another thing that we talked about today, moving forward. And again, I don't want to throw all these things out there without really truly evaluating the costs. One of my thoughts, you know, and again, in talking to staff, next year's projects, we add in a cost for what's called potholing. You actually go out there and every block, if we think the water main's, you know, 5 feet off the back of curb, we go out there and every, let's say, 300 feet or every 600 feet or block corners, and we actually do a pothole. You're essentially just digging it up, finding it, locating it, confirming it's there, doing nothing more than confirmation. Confirming here, move on to the next block, confirm here. It adds a little bit of cost. My thought would be we would roll that into the previous year's costs. And again, I haven't talked to anybody more than, I mean, these are just some ideas, some brainstorming, but we would throw into the 2018 project, we would throw the cost into the 2017 project. Now, again, I understand we're beyond that, but for the 2018 year, we would do those potholes for the 2019 project. 2019, we would do the potholes for 2020. Again, you're talking what I would consider money well spent, a few $1,000s added to these projects. It's not, you know, it's not like we're talking $100,000, we're talking a few $1,000s to get eyes on these pipes. Again, it eliminates any what ifs, where's this?
Well, I'm also thinking here is, you know, we have the, sometime soon, 12 months or so, we will be going ahead and beginning the 2020 to 20 whatever capital improvement plan.
Correct.
And what kind of concerns me here is this whole Atlas thing, and to kind of piggyback with this is a week or so ago, Brent and I were down on the west side, down by the water treatment plant, and he has an atlas, and this area doesn't show a storm sewer. And based upon what you've kind of outlined tonight, I don't know if there's a storm sewer there or not. We just didn't see it. So I don't know how we do the survey. I don't know how we find these things. How do we find out if it is true or not, if that area down on the west side truly does not have a storm sewer? Okay?
A lot of investigation.
Okay, and that's gonna be something, so how do we pay for that? Okay? Going forward, because within the capital improvement plan, we're gonna have to go ahead and have some type of funding available, for 2020, 21, 22, whatever it's gonna be, but we can't just start on it in, June of 2019.
So let me just say some of this back so I make sure I understand it. One of the big issues we had this time was when we did Julie, it's after it was designed and we're about to do construction, so it's like, oh my, this is when we found the other water main. I think what your assessment is like, okay, clearly our atlases are not accurate, and so we need to be doing those kind of locations, whether it's through potholing or, you know, locating ahead of time, the year before. So that way when the projects are being designed, we take that into account. And I think that's obviously the right thing to do. You know, as Darren pointed out, I think maybe what the point of what you're saying then, Darren, is how do we do that for everything, whether it's storm sewers or, and because it would be a monumental task to say, hey, let's get that atlas updated this year. It's probably the prudent thing to do is to look at it a year ahead of time, like you're saying. We know what our projects are going to be a year ahead of time. We could probably take that in chunks, maybe a year, 2 years, so we're not overwhelming trying to update the entire old section of town. And I think that's the assumption. And, you know, you and I had a conversation about just that one project on Jefferson where we saw the sewer wasn't really accurately put, and so we were moving poles for, you know, not really a good reason. So, you know, we've already had the conversation, and I feel confident that, you know, as you're on board, that, you know, taking a closer look at these projects in the old section of town, you know, the year before is really going to be, I think, the solution. There's no doubt we're all disappointed in how this played out. Clearly, we have to do this. We can't not do this piece of water main and leave a 4-inch while we have the larger water mains on either side. Clearly, you know the predicament. You know, we have to come up with a budget. We have to try to fit within the budget. We plan ahead, and so when these kind of curveballs are thrown at us, it makes it difficult, and confidence wanes. So I think some of your solutions are good, and I think it's the right way to approach it in the future. And just assume that everything in the old section of town is not what it appears, right? So just get in there. It's like, you know, those of us old houses in this part of town, we know what happens when we open a wall up, right? A lot of scary things are in there. So we have the ability, like you said, through potholing or locating, to try to get a really good handle on what's we're going to run into in the future, and doing that ahead of time, I think, is the right answer. All right, what else? We got any other thoughts, concerns here?
Mayor, if I could chime in a little bit here, the project's on hold right now. We're obviously, I don't see anybody here from J.J. Bennis. Who's our representative on this project for J.J. Bennis? Amy, do we know? Ryan? A little disappointed that he's not here, but we can certainly follow up with them and sit down and discuss this a little bit. You know, being that it's on hold and we're here at Committee of the Whole, you know, that we may incur a remobilization fee as things unroll here. We're going to have to go back to City Council for approval on this expense. I guess I have a question in regards to, had we included this in our plans, if J.J. Bennis had caught this in their early homework, would this cost have been about the same? Are we incurring more? I guess if we had planned ahead, would this cost have been on that bid, or is this more expensive now at 115? Other than I see the contingency, which is a little high, but would the bid have been $100,000 more? I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is if we're incurring additional costs because of maybe a J.J. Bennis error, and he's not here, I guess, to defend himself, but you know, should they bear some of the burden in the fix? I think going forward, updating the atlas with Amy's restating of the CIP is a great idea, and we infuse those costs into what she's producing to present to you again this summer, and put those in as part of the CIP. I think we're going to have to update the atlas, and going forward in sections is probably the best. I'm assuming it hasn't been done only twice in the last 40 years because it's probably expensive. I don't know what it would cost to update our atlas all at once or even in sections, but so I guess I'm a little confused as to, are we going to incur a mobilization fee? Are we incurring additional costs to do this main that we wouldn't have had they had planned ahead with it?
A little bit of a tough question, because I think, you know, talking to a contractor, they're always going to say, well, these are my unit prices. Technically, we're using unit prices that they provided. The flip side of that is if you're going to do 1,000 feet of water main, and then now we're going to do 1,400 feet of water main. Actually, let me see. We're doing another 400 feet of water main, 420 feet of water main. So that obviously increases the quantity, which you would think then has the potential, I don't want to say definitively, but it would have the potential to adjust that price down. We are, ductile iron water main, we're doing 2,300, about 2,400 feet. So another 400 feet on top of that. So I mean, it's certainly not a quantity that is that's negligible. I mean, there's a quantity there. Would there be any remobilization? Now, I will tell you, if again, bringing this to council, and I understand that our process, we have to bring this to Committee of the Whole and then to council. If we waited another 3 weeks, there is a chance that deconstruction would be mobilized off of the project and have to remobilize. So there may be a remobilization cost that would become part of the project that we would not have had.
Wait,
Yes, sir.
You said that this project is on hold right now?
No, it's not. They're working out there. There's this
little
areas.
This little
These
section.
sections.
This little
These sections are on hold until we make the decision.
In other words, until we vote on it,
Well, that's going to be 3 weeks from now.
Right, well, we can,
we could put it on city council tonight. We could vote on it
Does
tonight.
anybody have any problem putting it on city council tonight?
I think in the end, we're all probably going to decide it needs to be done. And I'm not really interested in seeing
No, I don't want to wait
pipes
3
laying out
weeks.
there on
I don't wanna
residents'
wait 3
yards.
weeks because of a procedural thing,
Right.
and then on whatever date that is, June
June 7th.
7th, and
Yeah.
then they're back there on June 8th.
No, I think you're going in the right direction.
Well, we could still list it on that agenda, and with your kind of verbal consent today, we can continue on. I mean, we've, in the past, if you recall, excuse me, we've done work because it was an emergency to do it, and we brought it to you after the fact. I mean, we're trying to get ahead of it, but I agree, if you're gonna hold everything up for 3 weeks, which could be a month, those crews could mobilize to another project and then remobilize back, and, yeah, it may not be the best
Well,
idea.
this is the 4th time in the last 3 years. We had Division Street Bridge, we had 10th Street, and we had 9th and Thornton, the stoplight 9th and Thornton. All came to a halt for various reasons, okay? And just such an inconvenience, okay? And so, I mean, I'd like to vote on this. I'd like to, put it on the agenda and vote on this, in 20 minutes. Instead of just giving a verbal, we're all gonna vote on it anyway.
Amy wants to say something.
Amy wants to say something.
Okay.
Would it not be possible just to put it on consent agenda and give us the go-ahead to give the contractor the,
That's a good idea.
Ultimately, can't leave a street open. I mean, we
Right.
have to do something.
Okay. I'm willing to put it on the consent agenda for June 7th meeting.
I just want to ask one question here. On Jefferson Street, running north and south over Division, that's the 4-inch line that we're going to abandon, the one that's right in the middle?
Correct.
Okay, it looks like the new line that we're proposing to put in, the 8-inch line, is eventually going to tie into that 4-inch line, or correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to continue 4-inch farther south on Jefferson?
We have talked about that, and Scott, can I have you, or Amy? I know we have talked about this one.
yes, there is an existing 4-inch line on Jefferson, south of Division, that we will be tying back into.
Okay.
That section of Jefferson Street is in the CIP in a later year to be replaced. We would be able to replace that 4-inch line at that time when we reconstruct
Is it on the Water Atlas for that job?
Well, it is now.
It is now. Okay, so, but we are temporarily tying into a 4-inch line, even though we know that's kind of why, I mean,
That's correct.
if I understand correctly, we really don't have to do this repair. I mean, really don't, I mean, if we would accept 4-inch as being, water main that's good enough to handle the job, but most cases, I think, well, people in the industry realize 4-inch is not the right way to go. So that's why we're correcting it. But we could just say, I don't even want to do that and just leave it the way it is. I mean, technically, correct?
Good.
So we're choosing to do the right way.
That's correct.
But we're doing it the right way and then attaching back into 4-inch. Hopefully that will pair in the future.
That's correct. Yes.
Now the other job, the Washington Street.
Yes.
Now, the line we're missing there is the one, I've seen there's 2 water lines running east and west on Division. One on the north side of the street, one on the south side of the street.
There's currently one about right down the middle of the street. We thought it was on the south side of the road.
Okay.
And it is not on the south side of the road. It's running closer down to the middle of that road on Division. What we're going to do is we're going to propose to put it on the north side of the road.
So when we're seeing all the water main leaks, it's from the existing
That's in the
line.
middle. That's in the, I say the middle.
And
it's
how
actually-
far west on Division is that running? How far down the street are we having breaks?
a long way, a lot farther than what we're fixing.
As soon as we put that 8-inch main in,
So,
And that's correct, and you're absolutely correct. We already had that on another project up on McGregor and North, right where we were done. We replaced it. Just on the other side of our tie-in point, the main broke.
okay.
And, I mean, you have to stop somewhere. But you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, water. That's the good thing about water. It tells you where the problems are.
Well, with the restated CIP that we're going to be presenting later this year, these are kind of questions and things that you can pose where you can move, if this other 4-inch main, the rest of it is in 2020, you could move it up to 2018. It's just, what do you kick out, right? I mean, because there's only so much money available each year, and that's where Amy uses a lot of different priorities to set when things are done. I mean, we all look at some of these streets and say, why is this one being done versus others? And there's always a reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, there's just not enough money to go around to do it all at once.
Well, okay, so the couple things on the table then. One, I think, is we don't want to hold the project up for, procedure. I think we all agree it needs to be done. And yes, it's, where do you stop? There's always going to be a 4-inch main that we stop at. We can't afford to replace it all at once. So, we have to stop somewhere, and then we'll pick up again, and that's just understood. So I think whether we do it on a consent agenda for next week, if that's whatever's going to keep it rolling is what's most important to me right now. So if a consent agenda is enough of a message to send to the industry that says you guys can keep rolling, I'm okay with that. Then the second side of this is, kind of the plan of attack for how we deal with, our atlas and how we get ahead of these projects before they're designed. Because I'm sure J.J. Bennis, I'm not here to carry the water, but they'll just say, that's the atlas I was given, man, So are they responsible for locating it during the design process? If so, then maybe that is I think the problem Ben alluded to. If they just go off of what we give them, it's really hard to, to nail them to the wall for something. But all that kind of stuff, I think, we look forward to you clearing up so that we stop
Absolutely.
having these kinds of issues in the future.
Absolutely.
When we bid out jobs in the future, or design jobs in the future, do I understand properly that if we say, let's say we're going to use J.J. Bennis again, when you say, I want to do so-and-so street between this block and this block, don't you pay for what you want? I mean, if you say, I want every manhole opened, I want the whole inspection during your design, that's one way to ask them to bid their design. The other way is you could say, you don't have to open up, we're going to assume this and this and this. So how do we want to move? Can't you ask for like a cheaper design and a more expensive design in the process?
You could. I mean, absolutely. If you're handing them all this information and you're saying this is going to be your base, this is going to be your base map, absolutely. I would expect that price to be significantly lower because there is a lot of surveying, upfront surveying, again, investigation, time. So yeah, absolutely.
So to kind of answer Darren's question, like how do you, jobs in the future, how do we trust basically, when we go to design the next job, you can do it the thorough way at that time. That's correct. It's not like we need to water atlas as, today, but as we move forward, you can determine what's there and what's not there.
And in one way that staff has done a very good job of collecting information because we have a lot of good information over the past, I'll say 5, 6, 7 years where we've gotten a lot of record drawings, as-built. We've gotten a lot of our own work that's been done, a lot of record keeping. Now we just have to figure out a way to, I don't want to say figure out, we have to determine the best way to move forward with putting that information down on paper because again, we have a 2007 paper map that has nothing from that point on that we have. We take our best notes that we can. Again, staff has done the best they can, I think, with putting those on paper, and we have some internal maps that are farther along than these external, but we need to figure out a way now. Again, my biggest thing is if we're gonna hand these things out, I wanna have some ability to say, yeah, these are accurate. If not, I don't trust handing them out, quite honestly.
Okay.
And so that's where it's at. The other quick thing I do want to mention, I did not go over this, but we budgeted $1,666,000 as part of this project. The bids came in a little under $1.4 million, so we did have some excess funds. We had about $290,000 that was budgeted versus what was actually awarded. We're asking for $115,000 to be, as part of this project. So again, believe me, I understand. I don't want to make it sound like, yeah, this is money that was there. This is just fun money. That's not the way that I'm approaching this. But we did have a budget, and the award came in underneath that budget, so we do have some funds that were available as part of this budget.
Okay, and I'll tell you what, Brent, that's important to us. The idea that like, hey, we came in under budget, so it's all good. That's not the way we want to operate.
Right.
And I appreciate that you see it that way too. Okay.
Can I ask one more final thing?
Of course.
Do you feel that Alderman Petrakos, even though he's not here, that his questions were answered tonight? Or do you think we need to ask anything else?
I think we're going to have quite a few more discussions with Alderman Petrakos on this issue, and I'd be glad to invite him to our meeting with J.J. Bennis, and if we're going to go for consent and move this along for the good of the project, I'd be happy to involve him as an architect. He knows how to read plans and be involved, and we can speak to J.J. Bennis in regards to our expectations. We'll probably be going out for another RFQ in regards to inviting companies and firms on who we work with, and we want to make sure we set the expectations that this is old infrastructure and we do need support and help and verification of where things are, and as we update our atlas, and I think the potholing is an excellent idea. So yeah, I think we'll involve him.
Okay, thank you.
Instead of the public meetings with him, we'll have him with the private meetings.
All right, so in the meantime, are we okay with putting it on the consent for the June meeting, first week of June? Okay. All right, so we'll do that, and that should keep the project rolling then, everyone?
Sounds good.
See, the problem is Gordy was the human atlas, right? He probably knew it all. I know where that water main was,
right.
yeah, so.
Mike Greenan.
Green-
Greenan.
Okay.
He would have known everything.
All right, everyone, thanks. All right, any new business that anyone have? All good? All right, then we're just looking for a motion to adjourn.
Wait, really quickly, just an update. There is Memorial Day services that will be occurring in town, 9 o'clock at the Lockport Cemetery, which is next to St. Joe's Church, that cemetery.
We'll be closing off the road there in front for about an hour or so too, just a heads up for people that live nearby.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really interesting Memorial Day service. We tried to change gears a little bit. The Parettas were very helpful with this. It was about kind of going back to the roots of Memorial Day, when it was Remembrance Day, when, after the Civil War, folks would go out to the graves of, their loved ones who fell during that war, and they would go decorate their graves. And we thought of doing something similar this year. We have, veterans all the way back to the War of 1812 in the Lockport Cemetery. And so, starting with the folks we know who were there, and having some direction and having a ceremony there and letting people go out and visit those graves, I think is a good and proper way to celebrate Memorial Day.
So the one thing maybe we could request, and maybe we could put this in the paper, we do not know all the people that are currently there that are veterans. Ron Liff has found about 80 right now. We're working on, it's time consuming, very time consuming. Bob and him will be meeting on Friday the 19th to start putting the flags up. We've never done this before. We do not know how much time that would take. The Boy Scouts will be helping us too. So there's a whole bunch of people doing this. The cemetery has, I believe, 8,000 graves there. So this is large. When you don't know where someone is located, then to put a flag up. So this would have to start small and then build. But I think we should also include something in the paper saying if you have a family member that you want a flag, so we don't leave somebody out.
Yeah.
Because right now, we're just picking the ones we have time to find.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, everyone. Anything else? Okay. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Renee, seconded by Joanne. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Do you guys need a break, or you want to roll through?
Roll through.
Okay.
One thing, two things.
All right, so, City Council, just tell us when you're ready, and we'll get going.
You want to take CA1 first, or no?
29th.
Ready to go? Okay, thanks. So we're going to do city council meeting. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilwoman Salem?
Here.
Chaka's not here. Councilwoman Burbauer?
Here.
Councilman Gallogley?
I am here.
Councilman Deskin?
Here.
Councilwoman Bartleson?
Here?
And Councilwoman Beretta?
Here.
All right, me friends. Looking to have a motion for a consent agenda tonight.
I'll make a motion.
JR? Any seconds out
I'll
there?
second.
Seconded by Christine. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So consent agenda for tonight is the May 3rd regular city council meeting minutes, the May 3rd committee of the whole meeting minutes, our payroll period ending May 7th, our various bills, excuse me, Resolution 17052, which was disposal of a vehicle, and then the May 6 minutes of the new council member bus tour. So, we're looking to have a motion to approve.
So moved.
JR, seconded by
I'll second.
Renee. And may I have a roll call for that?
Catherine, you're...
Present.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Burbauer?
Yes.
Gallogley?
Yes.
Deskin?
Yes.
Bartleson?
Yes.
Yes.
2 abstain and 6 yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just a couple things here tonight. One of them is the city administrator's contract. City administrators run concurrent with the mayor's. So Ben's contract was up, and I have the new one before you. I know there were some questions that were asked over the past week. If there's still any questions, we can do executive session for it, or if everyone's comfortable, we can have a motion to approve, either way. So we're looking for either a motion for executive session discussion or a motion to approve.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session.
Okay. And then we have another executive session meeting too for M2, which is another personnel. I think it's for a hire. Okay. So we'll do those at executive session. And then the last thing we have here is CA1. Who's taking that, Tom or Ben?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is a follow-up to a conversation that started, I believe, at the strategic planning session last year regarding the reuse of the old City Hall building at 921 South State Street. The center, our Community and Economic Development Department will be moving to this building now that the township has vacated and opened up some space for us. And the consensus of the council last year was to offer the building for sale. What's before you this evening is a formal resolution authorizing us, the staff, to proceed with the sale. We have advertised the availability of the building in the Lockport Legend and the Joliet Herald News. This resolution, if passed, then will authorize us to accept bids through May 31st. After that, those bids will be presented to you at the June 7th meeting, and you'll be able to make decisions at that point as to how you want to proceed. You are not obligated to accept a low bid. You are, you're not obligated to accept the highest bid. You do have the authority to entertain other bids depending upon what the proposed use is, and you also have the option of rejecting all the bids. So it really does not lock you into any formal action at this point other than for the staff to proceed with the sale. Staff's recommendation is a yes vote on the resolution before you.
All right, so we're looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
JR,
I'll second.
seconded by Christina. Any discussion? Then may I have a roll call, Kathy?
Sure, roll call. Councilwoman Salem?
Yes.
Absent. Councilwoman Burbauer?
Yes.
Councilman Gallogley?
Yes.
Councilman Deskin?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bartleson?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Beretta?
Yes.
2 absent, 6 ayes.
All right, so now just looking for a motion to go into executive session.
And Mr. Mayor, so we're clear it would be pursuant to exception 2C1, which deals with the appointment and employment of specific employees.
Okay. So motion for that?
Motion?
Joanne, seconded by Catherine. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll meet in our executive chamber.
We'll figure that.
You don't feel comfortable?
All right, everyone, so we're back in Committee of the Whole, or a City Council meeting. So on the agenda tonight was, under the Mayor's Report, M1 was the City Administrator Contract Extension. So I'm looking to have a motion to approve.
So moved.
JR? Any seconds?
I'll second.
Seconded by Renee. Any discussion? Then we'll do a roll call, please.
Councilwoman Saban?
Yes.
Councilman Petracco is absent. Councilwoman Burbauer?
Yes.
Councilman Delory?
Yes.
Councilman Demetriou is absent. Councilman Nesbitt?
Yes.
Councilwoman Bartlett?
Yes.
Councilwoman Pratt?
Yes.
Two absent, 6 ayes.
All right, so unless there's any new business, we'll have a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
JR?
A lot of quiet people.
Any seconds?
I
to
second.
Get out of here? All right. Thank you, Christina. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Somebody said that they reached out to you too.
Absolutely. Jared?